I remember the night I first encountered the Wendigo as if it were yesterday. It was late January, and my friends and I had decided to spend the weekend camping in the wilderness near Munising, Michigan. Munising, a small town on the shores of Lake Superior, is renowned for its striking winter scenery and dense, foreboding forests. We had chosen a remote site near the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, a spot famous for its rugged beauty and ancient forests. The snow had been falling heavily for days, blanketing the landscape in a thick, soft layer that glistened under the moonlight. The air was frigid, and the wind howled through the tall pines, creating an eerie soundtrack to our adventure. After setting up our tents and starting a fire, we gathered around it, trying to warm ourselves against the biting cold. We roasted marshmallows and shared stories to pass the time. One tale that surfaced was about the Wendigo, a creature from Native American folklore. According to the legend, the Wendigo is a monstrous entity with an insatiable hunger for human flesh. It's said to be a gaunt, emaciated being with glowing eyes and a terrifying, unnatural hunger that drives it to devour those who cross its path. The stories spoke of its ability to possess people, turning them into Wendigos themselves, adding another layer of horror. We laughed off the legend, dismissing it as just another spooky story meant to unsettle campers. But as the night wore on, the temperature plummeted further, and the winds howling grew louder and more relentless. We were huddled close to the fire, trying to ignore the unsettling sounds of the forest when we heard it, a deep, guttural growl emanating from the darkness. It was unlike any sound I'd ever heard, a low, rumbling noise that seemed to resonate from the very earth beneath us. My friends tried to reassure me, but the growl was enough to send chills down my spine. The noise was followed by a series of sharp, scratching sounds, like something large and heavy was moving through the snow and brush just outside our camp. I grabbed a flashlight and ventured towards the source of the noise, my heart racing with every step. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but trees and snow. Yet, the sense of being watched was overpowering. Then, one of my friends yelled, pointing towards a shadowy figure emerging from the forest. The figure was tall and emaciated, with limbs that appeared elongated and unnaturally thin. Its eyes glowed a sickly, unnatural green, and its mouth was stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, predatory teeth. The sight was enough to freeze my blood. We scrambled back to the fire, panic setting in as the creature's growls grew louder and more persistent. We could hear its footsteps crunching through the snow, growing nearer with each passing moment. In a state of sheer terror, we packed up our gear as quickly as we could and decided to make a run for it. The trek back to our vehicle was treacherous. The wind howled with such force it felt like it was pushing us back, and the snow made every step difficult. The growls of the Wendigo seemed to follow us, growing louder and more menacing with each passing second. We caught glimpses of its glowing eyes through the trees, and its haunting growls echoed through the forest. Every so often, we'd stumble over hidden tree roots or slip in the snow, our breaths misting in the frigid air. The fear was palpable, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as we pushed forward. We had to keep moving, driven by the primal urge to escape whatever was pursuing us. Finally, after what felt like hours of stumbling through the snow and struggling against the wind, we reached the trailhead where our truck was parked. It was a small clearing off M28, the main highway that cuts through the wilderness. We threw our gear into the back of the truck and jumped in, locking the doors with trembling hands. As we started the engine and drove away, the growls of the Wendigo seemed to fade into the distance, but the terror remained. The creature's haunting presence had left an indelible mark on me. Even as we drove through the snow-covered roads, I could still hear those chilling growls echoing in my mind, a constant reminder of the nightmare we had barely escaped. When we finally reached the safety of a small motel in Munising, we were exhausted and shaken. The warmth of the room was a welcome relief, but the memory of that night haunted us. We spoke little about the encounter, each of us grappling with the terror in our own way. To this day, I can still hear that guttural growl in my nightmares. The Wendigo was more than just a story, it was a real and terrifying presence that I will never forget. The experience taught me that some legends are not merely tales meant to frighten, they are warnings of very real dangers that lurk in the darkest corners of the world. The Wendigo, with its insatiable hunger and malevolent presence, left a mark on my soul, and I know I'll never look at the woods the same way again.